Hey there, everyone. I'm Ryan Woldt, the host of the Coffee People and Coffee Smarter podcasts. Both shows are part of our Roast West Coast Coffee Network and presented by our collaborative partners at Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastar.com. You'll also find that link in our show notes or on our newsletter at roastwestcoast.com. Every so often, my friend Nick Schmitt and I connect on a video chat to have a cup of coffee. Nick is the specialty coffee ambassador over at Roastar, and we're often catching up when he's either out exploring the world of coffee or has just arrived home. We catch up on company business, share some of our favorite recent coffee shop experiences, we talk about the coffee industry at large, and generally just have a casual coffee hang. It's fun, and we decided to start recording them, mostly because I was forgetting to make notes about our actual work stuff. So if you haven't poured yourself a fine cup of coffee yet, now is the time. I've got mine. Thanks for watching, and welcome to Nick and Ryan Drink Coffee. I hit the refresh right after you came back, and then I was like, oh, he's gone. Sorry, yes, you were pointing out something on the shelf there?
Yeah, I actually got it for Christmas. It's like a little Lego espresso machine.
Oh, that's cool.
Off-brand Legos. It's not actually the Lego brand because I don't think they make an espresso machine one. But
if they don't, they will. They're an
after
awesome
seeing this,
company to look into. There's a really good documentary about what it's like to be like working at Lego. I'll have to send you. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today. Obviously, I'm sitting in front of a bunch of books, mostly for decor, although I did read, most of them. But I was wondering if anyone ever watching the show will like figure out what books are behind me because I move them around like as I'm accessing them, and it's kind of like a little. I was thinking like maybe I could hide something in there that would be like a little Easter egg sort of thing. And if somebody like ever called it out, maybe they get something from the show, or I don't know what. Haven't figured it out yet.
I mean, I definitely spy some roast magazines there. Mine are on the top shelf here. You can just see a little bit of white.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
We've got some similar. I see the new art of coffee. See that there? I have that one on my shelf.
They're not all coffee books. I mean, I tried to put the coffee ones behind me so it looked like I was a professional as my headphones fall off. I will say I've been reading How to Taste Coffee by Jessica Eastoe, and I also have her craft coffee book. And when I first started this show, I really kind of leaned into that book to make it sound like I knew what I was talking about. Speaking of, what are you drinking today, Nick?
I am kind of excited about this one.
Yeah, that's what you said in your email.
Yeah, I have got a cup of Chuck's Roast here.
Oh, from Chuck Patton here in San Diego.
Yeah, the man, the myth, the
I
legend.
haven't even had any of his coffee yet.
I mean, I've forked up my own hard-earned dollar for it, but
that's the problem, is I don't have any hard-earned dollars to fork out yet. I've been planning on heading down there, but I was actually going to go tomorrow. But we're supposed to get like this crazy rainstorm. As you can see, I'm not on the show. I'm not professional right now. This is my normal lounging sweater, my new Roastar hat. It's like a breezy, cool 48 degrees outside, and I've got my merino wool slippers on. Shout out to my friend Greg, who taught me that merino wool is a magic fabric. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I have on that note, I'm drinking Deep by Doma Coffee up in Idaho, and they don't even like really brand it with themselves. It's just to support the protectourwinters.org charity, and they're actually they're what I would call my charity of the month, right? It's every month we try to take a little bit of something and donate it, and we've been doing it on the show this year publicly, even though we've been doing it for a while. But they're one that I've been supporting, and they advocate for climate policies. It's kind of led by a bunch of action sports athletes. Jeremy Jones, a snowboarder, who, now that I think about it, I think my first snowboard was a Jeremy Jones board. he started it, and it's very much policy focused, and so things that I don't understand and I can't really do. But if I buy this coffee, it helps, and if we give them some money, it helps. So that's what I do.
How is the actual coffee?
Coffee is actually pretty good. So it's a pretty, I would say, mainstream flavor. It's a Guatemala. They do a different, they source beans to kind of match a flavor profile every year. I think this is the sixth year that they've done it. Their tasting notes are like nougat and lime and caramel. I would say it's more of like a traditional, right down the middle, kind of chocolatey, perfect for a cold winter day sort of coffee. And Salad Dome always does a nice job. Like they're a very coffee roaster of the people kind of vibe, um, with a very hip tasting room. If you're ever in Post Falls, Idaho,
Hmm.
uh,
I I kind of feel like I may have brewed this coffee a little bit too soon. It's delicious, but it was roasted on the 4th, so we're
mm,
at like 8 days
8 days.
when I'm drinking this. Maybe a little bit fresh. When I did my bloom, it looked like a volcano. Like it was the most foamy bed of coffee I've ever seen.
Is that
So it's
good
great.
though? Because you get a chance now. I'm assuming you have enough to do another cup, uh,
Yes.
a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and kind of just see how it's changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot. I've seen so many different things about how long you should wait. I also think that, I mean, everybody thinks like the fresher the better, which obviously is, I mean, not always the case. You don't want it on a grocery shelf for like 2 months, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't always buy the newest roast date. Like if I'm getting coffee at a roastery and they have varying roast dates, I'll shop around for like what can I actually take home and brew like right now because I'm impatient. So sorry, Chuck, if I'm not doing your coffee justice. If you're listening,
Of all people, Chuck will understand. He'll be the one that was like, "Oh, I'm so excited about it. I wanted to try it." I learned like kind of 7 or 17. I learned kind of like 14 to 21 days is like your best peak window. And for a long time, I was super aggressive about like that's where I want my coffee, and after that, it's trash. Before that, it's trash. But then a lovely roaster named Siri Simran Khalsa talked some sense into me. She didn't. I don't think she even realized she did it, but basically taught me that like, hey, it's still good coffee. Like even if it were to like step a foot outside of its peak window, it's not like it's bad. It's not like it's going bad. You need to chill the f out, and so that's kind of what I've been trying to do. Plus,
I
I think doing what you do and what I do, we end up with a lot of coffee at one time.
I have the most coffee right now that I think I've ever had in my house. Probably somewhere between like 6 to 9 pounds, all 12-ounce bags too. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, you were just
But
traveling. Is it all from that, or is it?
yeah, I tend to come home with quite a few bags. I think I need to start bringing a bigger suitcase or a second suitcase just to have more room on the way home. I took
Mm,
like a couple bags and like squished them down and like shoved them like I shoved one bag into a shoe because that was the only room that I could afford. Which I hopefully it was a Roastar bag, so it was definitely very well protected.
it was gonna hold
That's
up.
a
Uh,
yeah
you were in Portland, San Antonio, anywhere else?
yeah. Portland,
Just
Seattle, San Antonio, and Austin are the four cities I got to see last week.
what are you doing while you're there?
I'm drinking coffee.
Right, right.
No, a good portion of it is kind of checking in with like some of our customers, whether new or long term, just to see like how our relationship is going. Um, one of our awesome customers, Boon Boona in Seattle, Renton.
Mm-hmm.
I got to experience a coffee ceremony with him. I don't know if you know like the Ethiopian coffee ceremony.
I do, and I know
Um,
that particular roasting company.
oh
I
yeah,
met
Boon Boona
them.
is
I don't
great.
remember where. Maybe in New York. I think I met them, and we sat and had a coffee for a minute there. What was the ceremony like?
It was so cool. I had actually. I reached out to him and said I was going to be in the area and asked if he would be willing to do it because I, I've been seeing it on their socials for like years now, and I haven't made it to the Seattle area. So it's kind of a two step. Like first you roast the beans and then you brew them.
Hmm.
So just had a burner and then like a simple like stainless steel pan, and just roasted them over the open flame. There's not a whole lot of measuring going on. It's kind of like intended to be unscientific, like on purpose. They don't roast all their coffee that way, but yeah, just a very small amount of coffee, like four, the like four of us that there were drinking it, roasted over the fire, and then immediately ground and brewed in a
Hmm.
jabena. I hope I say that right, jabena.
I couldn't tell you if you were wrong.
Yeah, which is like it's an immersion brewer, so
Hmm.
it's the coffee and water are mingling straight in there, and then it's poured out of the little spout on the side. And I was expecting it to be more similar to a French press, but it was like super super clean.
Really?
I mean, it was still an immersion brew, obviously, but I don't know. There was a lot of technique while also being like not super specific on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of creating an experience with the coffee as they're going. I have to admit, I used to host these makers markets for local artists and usually at coffee shops. And someone had emailed me asking if they could do this coffee ceremony, Ethiopian coffee ceremony, at the event. And I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome. Like, totally. Come here. Like, check it, like, set up. I'll get a spot for you. And I wasn't really thinking it through. And they showed up, and before I could like even say anything, they had lit a bonfire on the sidewalk, like in a garbage can. And I was like, "Wait, what are you doing?" And we ended up having to shut that one down pretty quickly. And it was not on like a back street; it was like a main street in San Diego, and someone just starting a fire on the sidewalk. I was like, "We don't have permits for this. We just do these. Like, I don't know what you're doing."
This was fairly controlled, I would say.
Yeah,
They have like a little bar. They do it pretty often. They host little classes for them sometimes.
I'll have to
But yeah,
check
I mean,
that
it's
out.
all about just it's not by any means the most efficient way of making a cup of coffee. It's a reason to host and a reason to sit down. And like he mentioned that if somebody were to come by and say, "Hey, can I try this?" He wouldn't just like pour them a cup of it. He would restart. He would do the whole thing again for them. Like it's you sit
Yeah.
down and you enjoy it together. It's anywhere from like an hour up to 2 or 3 hours.
How did you brew that coffee this morning?
I did a V60, which is usually like my go-to starting point. My
Mm.
next one, I'll probably try out an AeroPress. I don't know if I'll do it on espresso just because I don't have my home espresso dialed in. I feel like I usually use like cheaper beans and mix it into something like a some sugary drink that's not for me when I make espresso at home. So I
Uh,
probably won't waste any of these beans on that.
if you're using cheaper beans, although I know you enough to know that like you're never probably not buying crappy coffee, you're it's still going to be like good coffee. It might just not
It's
be the best of the
cheap in a
best coffee.
relative sense. Yeah.
Yeah, cheap in a relative sense. I actually just brewed so because of the weather, which I'll rephrase is terrifyingly cold and brutal here in Southern California right now, and very wet.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel so bad for you.
I know it's tough. I actually set the dog up outside the booth this morning, and I had to go into the living room, get the heating pad he likes to sit on, and tuck it into his bed because he's just so brutal, cold uh, and wet. We're just at the beginning. It's going to rain for like 3 days. It's brutal. So I just brewed a pot actually this morning in the Simply Good brewer I have because uh, I just wanted a lot. It was like I just want a lot, and I want it to be hot, and I don't want to like think about it. And I'm sad because the clouds are blocking the sun. And I'm gonna watch an old episode of Law and Order this morning before I talk to Nick, and that was kind of my morning. Um,
Nice. Law and Order is my go-to like hotel room show with
yeah,
traveling a little bit more. It's just reliable, It's always on. The plot line is exactly the same every episode.
I just started back at season 1. So I just got a TV for the first time, uh, I don't know, since the early 2000s. And we got it for the Super Bowl because my in-laws are in town and we all wanted to watch, together. And now that I have it, my plan was to buy it and return it. I know that's shady, but
I've done that
it's
so many times.
it sucked me in. Like I'm into it. Like it's got all the apps on it. Like I haven't had a TV in so long. It's just crazy. Last night we watched Severance on it, and then like the sports and like there's all this stuff. I'm not advocating for televisions. Like read a book, like listen to a podcast, specifically this one, or watch this one, I suppose, if you want. But like it's just been like so like relaxing to come home and like or to be at home and like have something like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this or whatever. And then I saw they have 20 seasons of Law and Order on there. And I was like, I'm just going to start at episode 1. And so I've been working my way through. I think my wife is concerned. But with your travels, anything that stood out? Like, you're hitting a lot of places that I feel like you're going to go back to this year. So was it kind of that, like, pre-trip to, like, set up the next trip? But, or did something, was it just like, hey, we're here? Like, this kind of stood out. Obviously, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony, hard to top. But, I haven't been to San Antonio. This year will be my first time on the way to SEA. Portland is a great coffee town. Seattle's a great coffee town. I've never been to Austin. I'm going to head again on my way to SEA or on my way out. Anything that jumped out at you?
Well, like cities like Portland and Seattle, I mean, you can go there 10 times and go to 10 coffee shops each time and it
Mm,
never go to the same shop twice. I went to a couple of shops and roasteries that I thought were like pretty good size. And then I would go to another stop like a few blocks down and they're like, oh, never heard of that one. It just blows my mind. Everybody, there's like 3 coffee roasters in Wassa and like, everybody knows them. So that
hmm
was crazy. But yeah, I mean, we'll be back in Portland for like Coffee Fest is going to be there this year. Going to Texas was really cool because I'm same as you, much more familiar with the West Coast as far as coffee goes. I feel like any shop I go into, I find a random mutual connection with somebody. Usually you are. I feel like you follow every coffee company on the West Coast on Instagram that exists.
I probably
I
do.
haven't,
And Blue Sky now, although not as
and
many are
Blue
on
Sky.
there. Yeah, you
Someday
can
I'll
find
find a
us.
coffee shop before you.
Oh, I'm sure you found plenty, and you like you know more about what you're doing. I'm just kind of winging it. I'm more of like a bull in a china shop, like let's get to know the people, hang out sort of thing. But you actually like understand the coffee, and I'm just
You make your rounds. I mean, I've
dripping.
been a number of coffee shops I've gone to, and I'm like, oh wow, this place is so cool. And then I see a tip your barista sticker on on the tip jar. Like, oh, Ryan's been here already.
Yeah.
But no, going to Texas was really cool. That was my first time in the state of Texas.
Mm,
Obviously, SCA is going to be there. And my favorite thing at all the shows is knowing people, like talking to people I've already met or emailed with, meeting them in person, meeting people that they know who are also really cool. And I was thinking about Texas. I was like, I'm not going to know anybody there. I mean, it draws people from all over the country, but it was sweet to be. I went to the San Antonio Coffee Festival, so there
hmm
were a pretty impressive amount of roasters there. Right, at least 25 local roasters, like
Oh
all
wow.
decently small scale. And it was like slow enough. I was able to chat with all of them. At first, it was really busy, so I just kind of got my samples, went on my way, and then it slowed down towards the end of the show, and I was able to like stop and have conversations with some of them, stick a coffee bag with a microphone on it in their face, which was fun.
Do you like being on that side of things, like where you're asking questions? I mean, I saw some photos of you kind of like with a microphone or whatever. Uh, like I'm used to like now with the video, it's weirder because I'm constantly aware of what I'm doing with my hands. But like you in this new role and being out as an ambassador and talking to people, do you like being in that? I mean, are you? I don't want to say are you actually working, but it kind of I wonder sometimes are you like these are things I would ask anyway if I was here just for myself. Maybe you don't want to answer that on the air if anyone
I will
listens.
say that there's a lot of overlap in my job and what I would probably be doing whether I had this job or not. I would be going to these coffee shops and ordering the delicious coffees that they have either way. Um, Making something more of it is fun. Yeah, I mean, being on kind of like the like interview side of it is a little bit different. I'm kind of still getting used to it. I've been listening to more and more of your shows, kind of picking up on questions. Haven't asked
My
anybody their favorite Keanu Reeves movie yet, but that's
It's
to
the lake
come.
house. Um, it's it is interesting. You can get into a rhythm with it. Like I've been doing this show for a long time, and there's so much content out there, and it's never ending. And there's always more. Like every month, I look and there's a new show that kind of touches on our industry. That might be the first time I've said our industry about coffee and like really felt like I was part of it. That's imposter
Oh,
syndrome
you're part of it.
coming in. Uh, but I think consistency and stick to itiveness and helps, and also just people appreciate it if you care. And I was talking to Tim Williams from the AeroPress World Championships yesterday, uh, just a preview for a show that's coming out. But by the end of the show, I think he realized that like I was really, it wasn't just asking this for promotional purposes. Like I really cared about his answers, and I do care about them and all of our guests. But it was very clear that he kind of got excited to start asking me questions too. And all of a sudden, our 45-minute show went 70 minutes, and it's kind of unexpected. And then we're chatting afterwards. And I think when you show interest in people, which you clearly do, which makes you good at what you're doing, people are so excited to share this thing that they're excited about, and it's not egotistical, even. It's not like arrogant. It's just, this is the thing that got me excited, and how cool. Like, I wish I could just offer this up to the world, and, you give them that platform. And I think that's pretty cool. Uh, you had mentioned Austin. Did you get to that coffee shop or get to try? Was it Super Friends?
Super thing.
Super thing.
I looked
Yes.
it up. I think that they are mainly a roaster. It doesn't look like they have a retail space at all.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know.
I've yet to try it. Maybe we'll have to hunt down a bag of their coffee at SCA when we're there. But no, I didn't get to try them.
Are you doing, not you specifically, but do you know if Roastar is doing anything special? I'm not in that loop yet. I know it's still a ways away, but are you guys doing any
Uh,
events or anything?
yeah, I don't know too well for SCA. Our eyes have been set on Coffee Fest in New York, which is coming up.
Hmm.
So I know with that we're having some hand in. If you remember the little dog park that was at Coffee Fest in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
that'll be coming again. There may or may not be some tin cans with dog faces on them that
Nice.
you can also pet the dog. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
SCA, I don't really know too well. I know there's usually no shortage of after parties and things going on, latte throwdowns. So I'm sure there will be some of that. Are you gonna be in our booth? Do you know? Are you planning on doing
If I,
any like on
if
the
I get
road
invited,
interviews?
Nick, if I get invited, I hope so. I'm going to be there. I'm driving down from Denver. I'll be in Denver the week before, for personal reasons. Denver area, I'll be for snowboarding. It's like our vacation for the year. And I'm going to make kind of a road trip out of it. So this summer, I think I told you, like, I'm going to do the free coffee tour, which is coming together, where I basically just go from town to town and get a cup of coffee and then buy a bunch of coffee for everyone else that comes into the shop, and do that instead of putting any money into social media ads, or at least kind of one to one there. Because it just feels like a more fun way to spend the money. I mean, when you put it into the internet, it just sort of disappears into the ether. But when I sit and buy someone a cup of coffee, or 20 people a cup of coffee, it just feels better, and it's more fun for me, certainly.
It's
So
also
I'm
got a
gonna
really good name.
free coffee tour. People have been
Can't beat
responding well
that.
to it when I send out a message like, "Hey, do you want to be part of this?" Um, So I'm going to drive down from Denver to SEA in Houston, but I'm going to stop like in Oklahoma City and Colorado Springs and Austin and San Antonio, and try to hit up those, and hopefully do some pre-testing of the free coffee tour events. That's kind of my goal for that trip down because it's like a month or two before. And but then once I'm in Houston, what if I'm able to, whatever I can do as far as just talking to people in interviews, great. And if it's at with Roastar at the booth, great. I think I had hoped to do maybe a little bit more engagement. I had tried to get kind of set up to do some talks at SEA, but unfortunately, I wasn't one of the ones that was selected as a presenter. So we'll have to wait. I think maybe they're waiting. I'm going to just say for my own edification that they're waiting until it's in San Diego the following year. And then, it'd be
2026.
yeah, it would be my home
Well,
turf, except for the fact that we're probably moving.
well,
uh,
I do think that you did a really good job moderating the panel in LA. Really
I,
enjoyed that one.
if I could be a full time moderator, that would be awesome. I used to have this dream that my career would be naming things. Like I would have a company where you could just be like, hey, I have this product, I have this widget, I have this thing, this website, baby, whatever, dog. We need a name. And I would be the person to come up with a name for it. And there are companies that do this, and they're very focused on branding and legalese, like what will work. Is your company international? Does this word translate, into other places? That sort of thing. Is it offensive somewhere or not? But I wanted to do it with none of that. I just wanted to be like, just you give me the details, and I'm going to come up with a name for you in 15 minutes. No research whatsoever. That was kind of my hope, but that didn't
I
really
think that
pan
sounds like a
out.
new segment. Let's cut this segment and just make it Ryan names things.
We
No
can do that.
marketing, no other
Yeah, just
assistants, just a name.
yeah, just hold something up, and I'll be like, oh, that's a Flim Jam. Whatever. I don't know what it is. I hate to say this, but one of the best parts about getting a new pet is the naming part because you get to like come up with this thing that will be associated forever with this with our dog or when we got a fish or whatever. And I do believe that like certain personalities get certain names. Some people are this name. I mean, I don't want to like I don't want to like imply that a name is worse or better. But some people are, you when you say their name, you just kind of like, oh yeah, I know what they're like. And I feel bad because people immediately jump to like Karen, as the name, but that's not it. Like I feel bad for Karens. Generally speaking, I've known some lovely Karens in my life, but with our dog, it was very clear from like the first day that he needed a long, drawn out, regal, chaotic name that did not match. His name is full legal given name is Vaquito Whiskey Lemon Thundernuts Woltankus the Fourth. And so when we go to the vet, they write all that out on the board. And but that's what he is. He's chaos. He's a lemon. He's a, he's, we call him keto for short. He's just all over the place all the time, except for when he's on his heating pad.
I've heard his name so many times, and I can't. It gets me every single time. I do really enjoy old man names for dogs. My parents have two golden retrievers. Their names are Gus and Walter.
Yeah, that's nice too.
They're just perfect.
I think have you met anyone who's named their pet after themselves? So like if you got a dog, you would name it Nick.
I don't know that I want to meet anyone who does that.
Like I'm Jerry and this is my dog, Little Jerry. Kind of like the old Seinfeld bit, where he names the chicken after him, or the rooster rather. I've met one or two. It's always interesting, and you can always tell there's like this kind of like hesitation of like, I really regret that I did this or that we did this. It was funny at the time, but now I have to explain to everyone why I named this dog after myself, or this pet. When you're traveling from place to place, and this is something I'm thinking about a lot because we're going to be on the road a lot this year, uh, up the coast for the free coffee tour, Oregon, Washington, heading east into Arizona in March, Houston. all of that before July. When you're bouncing from city to city, I know, like, I feel like the coffee shop makes it more personal, but how do you kind of escape just the hotel room experience? You know what I mean? Like, are you actually able to get out and like feel like you're in Seattle, feel like you're in, Austin? These are cool cities, but if you're just staying at the Holiday Inn next to the Applebee's, it's kind of same, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's especially like a decent handful of like my trips that I go on are by myself, which doesn't make it easy. There's been like a bit of a not learning curve, but just kind of getting comfortable spending time with myself. Like going out to, I think the easy thing to do is just to pick up food or like go down to the hotel restaurant and eat and then escape back up to my Law and Order. But yeah, I mean, like eating out at a restaurant by yourself is it's kind of awkward sometimes.
Oh,
Like
I love it.
I've come to like it too. But at first, it's like I don't want to be sitting on my phone. That's not what I'm gonna do. But then when I put my phone down and I'm just there by myself, it is just impossible not to eavesdrop. Like I'm just sitting with all the other people that are around me, and I cannot escape that. So I try, but I've gotten glimpses into people's lives a little bit, which is fun.
Do you keep like a notepad with you or anything? I mean, I do that because especially when I'm alone, because people assume that if you're writing something in a notepad, you're actually working, or you're doing something, and it's a little less awkward. I don't sit at tables though, generally, unless I'm in a coffee shop. But like, I'm a bar guy. Like, if I'm going out to eat, I'm sitting at the bar pretty much
Yep,
always. And if I'm alone, I'm not gonna sit at the bar just to talk to the bartender. But it's just you can weirdly become part of a community at the bar if you want to. When I was in New York last year for Coffee Fest, there was a great little bar whose name I forget, just down the street from where I was staying, like off the 23rd. No, maybe a little bit further south than that. Um, but anyway, I sat at the bar, and when I got there, there was no one else there because it was kind of early. I was already burned out from like a long day at the fest, and then sat down kind of like 4:30 or whatever. But by like 6 o'clock, there's a full bar, and it turned out that the people sitting next to me asked a question about this that I beer I had ordered, and I had my notepad out taking notes on the day, and then they asked about that, and all of a sudden, like 2 hours later, I realized that like I know these people. Like they're inviting me to stay with them if I ever make it up to Vermont because they're back in town visiting from when they used to live in New York and hitting all their old places. And it's something that happens, I think, in the bar world, but also in coffee shops. Less so now that there are less coffee shops that have like a counter.
hmm
And I love a coffee shop counter. And if I ever go back into the world where I'm owning or working in that coffee world, that's something that would be important to me. Like a place for you to sit, watch the action happening, and then, just become part of that world.
that's really well said. I agree. I think that like sitting at a whether it's a coffee shop if they have one or a restaurant, yeah, being at the bar is like doors open. Like if somebody wants to just like comment on some random thing you ordered or are
Yeah.
looking at or whatever, it's like yeah, that's
It's
talk to me.
riskier because sometimes people want to talk to you about things you don't want to talk about. But I'm old enough now that I can shut that down pretty good. And I think with the beard, it helps. People are like, I don't know. If I'm just like not into it, they usually leave me alone
I'm
for whatever
horrible at
reason.
escaping conversations. I will smile and nod for as long as that person wants to talk about whatever they want to talk about. It's not a trait that I love about myself, but a little bit.
Yeah, but it's also you're empathetic. I mean, you're doing it right now.
I'm just browsing your books in the background as you talk about your
Let's see if we have anything good back here today. I have not read The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles, but I've read some of his other books, and they're all pretty amazing. Uh, and this one at the bottom, Let My People Go Surfing by Yvonne Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, is a book that I gave to all of my employees in the restaurant business because it
Hmm.
One, like it's a totally different industry. It's retail, but it's more about like how you treat people in that business. And if somebody is working with me or for me, if they read this book, they'll pretty much understand why I do most of the things that I'm doing on any given day. And I think it really helped, especially the management team, like us all get into sync. And I mean, I'm not saying it's like the end all be all. Like obviously, every situation's unique, but it taught me like mostly about trusting people. Like if you go through and do the effort up front to like build a good team, you should trust them to do their job and not kind of constantly micromanage, which was something I was guilty of earlier in
Hmm.
my career.
We do some book clubs every once in a while. That sounds like a good one.
Oh, and you like a good beer every now and again, right?
I do.
You can join our book club. We have it's called the I Like Beer Book Club. And every 6 weeks or so, we get together as a group and we all have a beer that is supposed to somehow connect to the book that we read. Sometimes it's a tenuous
A little
at
bit of a
best,
stretch.
but it's just a group that likes to read and have a beer, and they're kind of all over the country. So all over the West Coast, rather, from basically Tijuana up to Seattle. And about 8 of us. We could join that. You could be our
Hmm.
first Midwestern member, and they'd
First
be
current
excited.
Midwest member. You're
First current,
Midwest.
yeah, current Midwest. Uh, I don't know that I am. How long do you have to leave a place before you're like? I claim Midwest, obviously. I claim Wisconsin. I'm proud of growing up there, but I don't know. I've been gone a long time.
I don't think there's a time limit on it. I think it's emotional. It's what you make it.
What else do we have to talk about? I'm almost done with my coffee. I'm gonna have to get more.
I guess what are some ways that you try and branch out? Like if you're going to coffee shops, and are there like things you're looking for that how do you judge a coffee shop when you walk into one?
How do I judge it? Uh,
Not judge in a bad way, but what are you
Constantly,
observing?
incessantly. I judge coffee shops. I judge all hospitality businesses based on the entryway. And that's just from working in one and knowing, my favorite part of every day when I was running the restaurant here in San Diego, the last place that I kind of ran seriously, which has been, what year is it? It's been 5 years since I left. So it's been quite a bit. I mean, time really flies. But my favorite part of the day was I would get there, hours before we open, and the first thing that I would kind of do would be to open the front door and go out and sweep the sidewalk and in front of the building. I mean, it's not my responsibility technically or ours, and I could have probably had someone else do it, but it really gave me a chance to look back at the restaurant and be like, okay, these are the issues that I'm seeing today. Help me kind of process what the night before was probably like on the street, see what the customers would see when they walked through the front doors, because that's going to be, whether they realize it or not, the first thing they think of, the first feeling they get. And if there's like trash everywhere, you might, it could be the best coffee in the world, best beer in the world, but there's a little part of you that was impacted by that entryway. And
Mm-hmm.
it was also a cool way to connect with the other businesses, like as a business person, like a business runner. Uh, the people that were walking at that time of day and in the neighborhood were either going to work or getting on break, going to get a coffee or something. They lived in the area. So you got to know people, and they got to see you as like the face, got to see me. Oh, he's the guy from the place. And then if they found out that I was in charge of the place, they'd be like, oh, wow, like he's out sweeping. Like he's someone who cares about our neighborhood. And it became a nice way to just connect, not to toot my own horn. The second thing
Mm-hmm.
is the toilet paper. If always, if you are serving single ply crappy toilet paper, if that's what you have in your bathrooms of your hospitality business, I know you're trying to save money. I get it. I also know that you don't care enough about your employees who have to work there and are there every day to buy nice toilet paper, even semi nice, like basic toilet paper. So you should never have toilet paper in your bathroom that you wouldn't have in your house. That's my feeling. So I definitely judge that more on like I know the employees here aren't super pumped about the situation. As far as like the product goes, yes, I want good coffee. Yes, I want good stuff. Um, but I think taste is subjective enough that I'm a little empathetic on it, or I'm more empathetic on skill sets too. Like I know everybody's probably trying their best. Like maybe my coffee was over extracted or something. 9 out of 10 customers might not notice that. I might not notice it half the time. But I think it's more important if the service was good. I was just talking to someone else about this. Like if I if you say, "Hey, what's your coffee today? What's your batch brew?" and the person goes, "Oh, I don't know." That I notice. And it's not just I don't know, but I don't know. The next thing should be, but I'll find out. But if it's I don't
Mhm.
know, end of conversation, then I think okay, there's some disconnect between the shop and the customer, the shop employee and their management or whoever's in charge. And I wouldn't say I judge it, but I definitely take it into account if I think about going back or recommending it. How about you?
I can't say I take too much note of the toilet paper as much.
Mm,
Um, I really agree with the first thing you said. I That was something I picked up when I was like 16 years old working at Starbucks. I used to always just get the closest parking spot. And then our district manager at the time, I learned that she would always park in the back of the building and walk around. And
mhm.
I figured that's easy enough to do. It frees up a spot in the front of the parking lot, and you get to like see, walk through like the drive through, like what everybody's like seeing as you're approaching the shop, and I think that matters a lot too. And then yeah, I'm a question asker. Like when I go up to the bar, I ask so many questions, like, not because I don't know the answers to a lot of them, um, but I'll ask like, yeah, what's your batch brew? Because that's usually what I'm ordering too. Um, like I don't mind if there's not a light roast brewing. If there is a light roast brewing, that's awesome. What's even more awesome is if you tell me about the light roast that's brewing. You know, like if you give more than what I ask for when I like just ask a simple question, that I think speaks so much. And like that's
Sure.
always what I don't know, prided myself on when I worked in cafes is like I was excited to share information. And yeah, I mean you can't be 100% like wanting to talk all the time.
Mm.
People are busy. They have a lot of other things going on, but I think the attitude on how you just talk about things matters a lot.
Yeah, situationally, like if there's a line of 10 people and you're asking 15 questions, that's a little bit different than if like there's clearly
I can read a
time.
situation like okay enough.
But it's also like different in if you're in a place that is clearly a faster pace in out sort of shop versus like
Mhm.
we're a roaster. We're taking our time. We're caring about this in a different way. Um, we recognize our audience is more engaged. The problem with that from the business side is if you're going slower or taking more time, you're serving less people. So then your prices generally have to be higher. And there's a tough balance there. Um, that's hard to work through, I think, from that side of things. It's
Mhm.
really easy is not the word I'm looking for. But if you didn't have to think about the money, it would be so much fun to just this is a cool concept and this is a cool thing and this is how I want to treat the product and the customers and the employees. But then there is this overwhelming need to make the bill, right? Like you got to pay the rent,
Mhm.
you got to be able to pay the labor for the products, like, and you have to do it consistently over time. And I think that can just wear down on people. And
If if money wasn't a thing, do you think there would be more or less people working in coffee?
I think there would be more people willing to take a risk. I think there would be more great experiences. I say that believing there are a lot of great coffee shops and roasters. I've been to a lot of them. Uh, if so, I don't. I have a problem with online reviews, even though I very actively read them. I do have a Google account where I do reviews under the Roast West Coast name, and if you look at it, they're all 5 stars, everyone. And it's not because every place I go to is 5 stars. It's because those are the only ones that I'm choosing to do the effort for to write that review, right? I don't need to be somebody that's giving somebody 1 star because I don't know what else was going on, that day
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like maybe it's just a one off. If I have a really great experience and I want to share that, I'll go and do the review and include photos and things because as someone who travels a lot, it's how I find other places.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty good at like reading, like, oh, if 200 people say this place is great and like four of them go, this place is terrible. Well, you can generally look past that. Uh,
I usually when I'm looking at 1-star reviews, it's because I'm like, what did this person complain about? Like what did the shop really do to deserve a 1-star review? And
yeah.
usually, I
Well, it's
mean,
it's
yeah,
always
things go
like
wrong.
something. A lot of times, it's something that has nothing to do with the shop. Like, uh, I was on my way to the shop and I tripped and fell. 1 star, and you're like, all right, cool. If you really want to like kill 45 minutes and just like laughing at people's reviews, look up bad reviews for national parks. Fantastic. Like, people will go online and be like, too much dirt here, and you're like, I went to this park and I didn't see this one thing that the park is famous for, and you're like, there's no guarantee that you're going to get to see like buffalo mating season or something. I don't know, whatever. Uh, but those are like my favorite. Anyway, yeah, I think I don't remember where I was going with all that, which is I think it's because I don't have any more coffee, Nick, and I think we should call it a day.
You don't have any more coffee. Mine is just about cold at this point, but
Yeah,
it's cooled really nicely. It's
that's how you know it's good.
that has been a big like characteristic I've been looking at lately. Or I'll just pour like a little tiny splash in my cup first and swirl it around to let it cool. Because you can't. I mean, most coffee tastes halfway decent when it's piping hot and you can't taste anything.
Because it's so brutally cold outside. I treated myself and I had a cookie this morning for breakfast and I dipped it into my coffee and I'm at the point where I'm getting the cookie back. The cookie that didn't make it from the dunking, which is always a risk. No, that was kind of my hope, but I didn't tell you that, and I felt kind of bad about it. But I was just like,
Nah,
I'm gonna do
we
it.
just started talking.
Uh,
My
I ha-
after the last one, Amber was listening to it,
mhm.
and as she was listening, she was like texting me like as if she was like part of the conversation. And she told me after the fact, she's like, "Yeah, I just kind of felt like I was talking to you guys, even though I was just listening."
That's awesome.
So I guess she
Sh-
enjoyed it.